Okay, Sharon, we're all yours.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shannon Landrum, and I am a consultant with the Nash Group. And I get the pleasure of introducing you to Cathy Brownell. She is our guest speaker tonight. Cathy is a certified nurse midwife in the state of Michigan. I've known Cathy personally for probably 18 to 19 years. I worked with her as a nurse on the floor and got to know her very well. And then when she decided to go back to school to become a midwife, I went to her and she delivered my last two children. So I'm very excited that she agreed to come and talk to you guys all about being a midwife in the United States. And we'll start with some questions that I'm going to ask her, and I'll let David translate.
Okay. Buenas noches a todos. Shannon nos saludaba. Shannon es una de nuestras personas en el grupo Nash. Shannon tiene el placer de presentar a una compañera que ella trabajó y estuvieron en el estado de Michigan. Lo bueno es que Shannon la conoce hace mucho tiempo y una de las cosas que hizo Cathy es que ella decidió progresar su profesión y capacitarse como enfermera practicante de obstetricia. También se conocen como las parteras. Shannon nos cuenta que ella en particular tuvo el placer de que Cathy fuera la que le ayudara a dar a luz a sus últimos dos hijos. Okay.
Cathy, I just want to start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about your career as a registered nurse prior to becoming a midwife.
Shannon le pregunta a Cathy que nos cuente un poquito de su carrera profesional y cómo fue que usted se interesó en volverse una enfermera practicante y volverse una enfermera en el área de obstetricia.
I was a labor and delivery nurse for 20 years, and where I work, we worked all areas. So I worked postpartum, so working with those moms, newborn nursery, labor and delivery, triage, and in the OR. So I was a scrub nurse as well in the OR. So I did that for 20 years. And before that, I was a student and happened to end up in OB and was able to get floated in just about every department, but liked it so much in OB. I was fortunate enough that they hired me right out of nursing school, which is very rare.
Okay. Cathy nos cuenta que ella fue una enfermera en el área de servicios de obstetricia por casi 20 años. Ella obviamente cubrió todas las áreas, incluyendo las áreas de posparto, las áreas de preparto, inclusive fue una enfermera quirúrgica a nivel obstétrica. Así que ella tiene obviamente cubierto las áreas que tienen que ver con la parte de obstetricia. Ella comentaba que en su carrera profesional, una de las cosas que la llevó a trabajar en el área de obstetricia es que desde la carrera ella se entusiasmó y empezó a trabajar desde el comienzo como enfermera obstétrica y de eso entró a trabajar en todas esas áreas.
Okay, I know working with you and working and knowing the OB floor that you work on, that the nurses there are very independent. So they, do a lot of things on their own. So what led you to become a midwife? What made you go back to school and made you decide to become a nurse midwife?
Okay, Shannon le pregunta, bueno, habiendo cubierto todas esas áreas y teniendo tanta experiencia en esas áreas, ¿cuál fue la motivación importante de volverte una enfermera practicante, sobre todo en este momento después de haber tenido una carrera de casi 20 años?
I love labor and delivery and absolutely loved working with patients. And the nurses there are very independent. We did all of our exams, pretty much ran the show. And then the one thing that was missing was the delivery part. So we did all the work. We got to the point where the head was crowning and then the doctor would come in and put on gloves and catch. And so that was the one thing I was really missing. And a lot of people had told me you'd make a great midwife, which I tried to say, no, you're crazy. But eventually was like, you know what? I love bonding with my patients. Imagine being able to be with them from the very beginning up until that deliver and then being able to deliver them. And it's such a special part of that, of their lives, and something they always remember. I wanted to give them a great experience. And I love and am very passionate about labor and delivery.
Okay. Cathy nos cuenta de que obviamente ellas como enfermeras a nivel de obstetricia trabajan bastante independiente. Ella tuvo la oportunidad obviamente de cubrir todas las áreas y hacer básicamente todas las partes que tenían que ver con el proceso de dar a luz de las madres y los bebecitos. Dice que lo único que le hacía falta era tener la oportunidad de simplemente cuando ya el bebé estaba llegando, de hacer lo que hacían los doctores, que era simplemente recibir al bebé que estaba dando a luz. Sus compañeras de trabajo le decían por mucho tiempo que ella tiene un buen don, una buena dote para ser una enfermera partera, que por qué no completaba su entrenamiento y simplemente se volviera a eso. Entonces ella decidió que, claro, completara su ciclo completo, volverse enfermera partera y cubrir todos los aspectos desde la parte prenatal hasta la parte de dar a luz a las personas. Okay. Shannon.
Thank you. So what does a midwife do different than a physician or a labor and delivery nurse? Like what's the main difference?
Okay. Shannon le pregunta a Cathy, cuéntanos cuál es la diferencia importante entre ser una enfermera partera o, por ejemplo, una doctora obstétrico o una enfermera que trabaja simplemente en el área de dar a luz a las personas.
So one of the biggest difference between a midwife and a physician is that we cannot perform surgery. So whenever there's a C-section, we need a physician to be able to do surgery, but we assist in surgery. So I assist in all our C-sections and actually do the closures. As far as nursing and midwives, there's differences as far as I can do prescriptions, prescribing. I still am a nurse at heart, so I still do some of those duties, such as helping them turn patients, doing catheters in the OR, helping them prep them. But then I also then get to assist in surgery, but also just I write prescriptions like physicians. Those are probably some of the biggest difference. I always tell patients, I cannot perform your surgery, but I can assist. And as far as, like I said, the labor and delivery nurses, I'm a labor and delivery nurse at heart. That will never be taken away, but with the added responsibility of this is me, it's up to me on how this goes, and knowing when to call for help and call your physician.
Okay. Cathy nos cuenta que la parte más importante, obviamente, ella puede atender a todas las partes de dar a luz a un bebé. La única parte que una enfermera midwife, una enfermera obstétrica no puede hacer es simplemente, ella no puede hacer una cesárea. Ella tiene que tener a un doctor para que haga eso, pero ella obviamente puede asistir en la cesárea. Ella dice que obviamente siendo una enfermera obstétrica de entrenamiento, de corazón, ella hace básicamente casi todas las cosas, o todas las cosas que hacen las enfermeras obstétricas, con la ventaja de que en la gran mayoría de las situaciones, ella es la que está también recibiendo a los bebés. En realidad, ella dice que la diferencia fundamental más grande es el hecho de que obviamente en la parte quirúrgica, la parte de cirugía, la parte de las cesáreas es la única parte que ella no puede atender, la tiene que hacer un doctor. Eso lo hace, ella puede asistir, pero lo hacen los doctores. Cathy, can I ask you a specific question? Is there a limitation for you? I know you said that you do all the medications part, but what about the most important one? When everybody now is into epidurals and things like that, you are the one who does that, or is the physician who has to do those?
What was that again? I'm sorry.
When it comes to putting an epidural on the mom, is that something that you do, or is that something
No,
that
that's
the physician?
something a CRNA would do. So that's a certified registered nurse anesthetist. They do the epidurals.
Okay, so that's not something that is in your skill set. Yo le preguntaba a Cathy que si dentro de las cosas que ella hace tiene que ver de ponerle la epidural a las madres, y me dice que no, esa es una parte de las cuestiones relacionadas con anestesia, solamente una enfermera anestesióloga puede poner las epidurales a las madres. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
So I know that a lot of the people that are listening to this webinar are going to have some questions about the schooling.
Mhm.
So what schooling is required to be a midwife? Do you have to be a registered nurse first, or can you just become a midwife without being a nurse? Just kind of if you could talk to us a little bit about that. When you're in school, I mean, can you work full-time while you're in school? I mean, how does that work-life balance and school balance and everything go?
Shannon le pregunta a Cathy que si uno puede simplemente, ¿qué se necesita para poderse volver una enfermera practicante en el área de obstetricia, una enfermera partera? Que si uno puede empezar directamente a formarse como enfermera partera, que si se requiere ya tener el título anterior, y cómo es, y que si es algo que se puede ir estudiando mientras que se está trabajando en su profesión como enfermera en el departamento de obstetricia.
So you do have to be a nurse in order to be a certified nurse midwife. So there are lay midwives and there are certified nurse midwives. Lay midwives are midwives that usually deliver at home and are not nurses and were just trained by somebody and are not affiliated with a physician. A certified nurse midwife is somebody who was a nurse first and then went back and got their master's degree, which is required right now, which was an extra 2 years of schooling after my bachelor's degree in order to become a midwife. And then you have to retake boards. So you take your boards for your RN, but then you also take boards again after your formal training to become a certified nurse midwife, which includes didactics, so your online courses, and then clinical, which was very difficult at the time that I did it because my children were in high school and involved in sports, and I was working full time. If you were to ask me now how I did survive, I'm not quite sure how I survived, but I had a board and I knew when things were due and when I had to get them done. So it was not an easy task, but I survived.
Okay. Okay. Cathy nos dice que en realidad hay dos tipos de acreditaciones para hacer esto. Ella es una enfermera registrada, obviamente tiene su pregrado en enfermería, y esto es uno de los requisitos para volverse una enfermera midwife o una enfermera partera certificada. Esto es un programa de 2 años y ella lo hizo obviamente mientras estaba trabajando y obviamente atendiendo al hecho de que ella es madre de hogar y tiene hijos, y obviamente fue bastante difícil hacer todo al mismo tiempo, pero lo logró hacer. Para certificarse se requiere tomar un examen adicional al examen de enfermería, el famoso examen del NCLEX que ustedes conocen. Ahí necesita tomar un examen especial para registrarse como enfermera, que es obviamente un examen que hay que prepararse tanto académicamente como a nivel técnico para poder recibir ese tipo de títulos. Okay. Cathy, can you expand a little bit for the uneducated, the difference between you and the lay
Midwife?
midwife? Is that how you, L-E-Y, lay midwife? I need to figure out how to translate that.
Lay is not, yeah. Lay,
Okay. Yeah. Like layman, okay.
yeah. They're just somebody that obviously that wants to deliver babies at home. So that's one of the biggest difference. They deliver only at home. because they don't have to have the formal training. Like they're just trained by somebody else that was trained by somebody else that to deliver at home. So they have no like formal, nursing training, to whereas we're certified. So certified just means that we're nurses first, and we go through the formal training of school, didactics, and clinical.
Okay, so those people, just so I translate this right, those people just get trained on the job by other
Yep.
people who does the
Yes.
job.
Yes.
Do they get any kind of certification related to that? No, they don't get an state license or anything like
Nope.
that. They just do it from home. They're just
They
kind
go
of
to
like
people's homes and deliver.
Middle ages type of style where other women used to assist other women delivering care.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. ¿Existe otro grupo de personas parteras o alguien me está escribiendo aquí que las llaman doulas, que son personas que obviamente no están entrenadas como enfermeras, que ellos pueden asistir a personas a dar a luz en casa, en el hogar, no pueden acercarse a un hospital ni nada por el estilo? Estas personas no tienen entrenamiento profesional, no tienen entrenamiento educativo, ellos simplemente son entrenadas por otras personas y ellas asisten a las madres a dar a luz en casa, a las personas que deciden que quieren quieren simplemente dar a luz en casa y quieren tener ayuda de una persona que no tiene nada que ver con una enfermera. Ese tipo de personas también existen en los Estados Unidos. ¿Okay? Pero para el entrenamiento de certificarse como enfermera, requiere obviamente ser enfermera primero, tener la certificación de enfermería y después pasar por la maestría de los 2 años de volverse una enfermera certificada de midwife. Somebody asked the question, if I don't mind starting this, because I think this question, somebody was asking specifically about if you do episiotomies, is that part of on your skill set or part of what is included on becoming, having your skill set? And kind of like there is a small follow-up question to that. And are there men that becomes midwives?
So yes, episiotomies are in our skill sets. We just don't usually perform them very often. But any lacerations that may occur, 1st degree, 2nd degree lacerations, we repair. If it becomes to a 4th degree, then we call in our physician. But yes, we can perform episiotomies. And as far as men, I know probably of 1 or 2 men in midwife that are midwives.
Okay. Mauricio, Cathy nos contesta tu pregunta de que sí, ellos hacen episiotomies. Normalmente aquí las clasifican como grados hasta el grado número 13, ya las cubren. Si es una episiotomía más de grado 4, ahí sí ellos llaman a un doctor para que se encarguen de hacer eso. Con respecto a la pregunta que tú haces de que si hay hombres que trabajan como parteros, que sí ella conoce algunos, obviamente muy limitado, pero sí conoce un par de hombres que trabajan como enfermeros obstétricas o parteros, ¿ok? Muy bien. Okay, Shannon, we are all yours.
Okay. I want you to kind of talk to the nurses that are on the meeting about the different settings you work in. So, I know you work in the office, you work at the hospital, even you're in the nursery. I mean, you do circumcisions, you do things like that. Can you kind of talk to them about what you do in the office? You don't just deliver babies, you do other things.
So Shannon le está preguntando que por favor nos cuente lo que ella hace en los diferentes lugares, cuando ve a las personas en las oficinas, lo que hace obviamente en la unidad cuando está ayudando a la luz. Ella también hace circuncisiones, que nos cuente un poquito lo que hace en las diferentes partes del hospital.
So in the office, I perform pap smears or well women visits, because that is a misconception that midwives just do deliveries, but we do a wide range. So I do well women visits. I treat women in menopause and with hormone replacement therapy. I do what's called sonohistograms, and we're finding that has helped a lot of women with infertility, which I'm also doing quite a bit of. I also do Nexplanons, IUDs, removal, insertions. Of course, all prenatal care, postpartum care. That's just in the office.
Give me 1 second because
Sure.
it's a lot of things
Sure.
for me to translate. I'm trying to remember half of that.
It's quite a bit.
Okay. Cathy, no, la pregunta es obviamente ella qué hace cuando ella trabaja desde la oficina. Ella dice en la oficina, ella obviamente cubre una gran variedad de servicios, incluyendo, no estoy seguro cómo traducir pap smears, pero si alguien es tan generoso, Mauricio o Eliana, si eres tan generoso y me lo traduces al español, te agradecería. Obviamente ella hace chequeos de progreso de embarazos, hace chequeos de personas después del embarazo, post embarazos. También ellos hacen un par de otras, aquí me lo trajeron como citologías vaginales. Ellos obviamente cubren básicamente todo lo que se hace a nivel de un doctor en la oficina. Ellos tienen la educación y la capacidad de básicamente hacer todo lo que tiene que ver con el pre y el post servicio natal de las mujeres. What was those two things that you mentioned that you do? I forgot. There are two other things specifically that are becoming very popular.
I do. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Is it which one? The infertility or
Sonohist, I bet.
sonohistogram?
Sonohistograms, okay. Ellos hacen histogramas de sonoro y hacen también ayudan para insertar y remover IUDs, las cuestiones obviamente para protección contra el embarazo y también hacen obviamente creo que aquí Karen me está ayudando, E.E.U.U, los llaman en español. Además, obviamente, hacen, bueno, básicamente casi todo lo que se hace en las oficinas. Ella está comentando que una de las cosas que se ha vuelto populares, ellos ayudan en cuestiones de infertilidad a muchas personas y ayudan en procedimientos y prácticas relacionados con cuestiones de infertilidad. Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
I guess I also in the office still I do a lot of primary care because a lot of people trying to find a good primary care. So I'll treat asthma, hypertension, high cholesterol, all of those things as well.
Okay. Cathy nos recuerda también que ellos, porque para muchas personas las enfermeras parteras se vuelven las primeras personas que dan servicio. Ella ayuda por personas que tienen presión alta, tienen problemas asmáticos. Ella da mucha ayuda en lo que en Estados Unidos llamamos los servicios de primera instancia, como los doctores los doctores de medicina o de medicina interna. Ella cubre buena parte de los aspectos de edad.
So in the hospital, I do deliveries, like I said, assisting in C-sections. I do postpartum rounds. I get all triage calls. So anybody that enters the unit that is our groups that's there for whatever reason it may be, I get those calls as well, all through the night, all day long.
Wow. Obviamente ella en el hospital, en adición obviamente de ayudar a la luz y asistir en las cesáreas, ella obviamente hace el triage, que es la parte de decir qué está pasando con las diferentes personas, y hace muchos de revisar a las madres después de haber dado a luz como parte del grupo de doctores con la que ella trabaja. One of the questions people is asking here, so I'm start passing some of those questions to you. Was there an age limit for people to start a program like this? Is this something that, if you are, do they give you, is that an age limit to become a midwife or as usual, you can just enter the profession anytime you want?
As long as you're a nurse first, I mean, you have to apply to the programs, and then if you get accepted, you can, at any point. Some people do it after a year of being in nursing, being a nurse. Some people wait. I waited a long time, but it varies from person to person, and not everybody that goes. Most schools, you have to be a labor and delivery nurse prior to applying. There are a few schools that you do not.
You don't know. Okay. Daniela, no hay límite de edad. Obviamente hay algunas personas que después de un año ya están entrando al programa y se están volviendo enfermeras parteras. Obviamente en el caso de Cathy ya esperó mucho tiempo, ya trabajó casi 20 años antes de entrar al programa. Nos recordaba también de que para algunas universidades tienen como requisito que ellos quieren que hayas trabajado por lo menos un año en el área de obstetricia, pero dice que ya hay algunas universidades donde te reciben al programa sin nunca haber sido una enfermera en el área de obstétrica. Okay? There are two key questions. Number one, can you give them an idea how much does it cost to become a midwife? And I will add to that question, how much did the hospital help you pay for that? Is this something that is part of the educational program that the hospital helps?
Well, I work for a private practice, so I didn't receive help, but I did receive help from private, like $85,000, and I had to agree to work for 3 years. But I think my total cost, because it's $500 and some a credit hour here, the school I went to, and I want to say it was a good, and probably $80,000 to $90,000 to get my degree.
That's for the full 2 years.
That's for the full 2 years.
Okay, you cut a little bit for a moment, so I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
That so it's a full 2 year, but the practice was the one who helped you.
Yeah, they gave me like $35,000 towards it.
Towards it, but you still had to come up with the rest. Were you still working at the hospital?
Full time.
Full time, but what about the tuition reimbursement from the hospital?
No, because you had to commit to stay there for so long, and so I knew I was going with a private practice. So
okay.
I didn't have midwives at our hospital at the time that I was going to school.
Okay. So en el caso de Cathy, ella nos comenta de que ella, el programa cuesta aproximadamente, dice, unos $80,000 a $100,000 pasar por el programa. En el caso de ella, el grupo de doctores al que ella participa le ayudó financieramente, le pagaron aproximadamente unos $35,000 del costo del programa. Ella estaba trabajando, ella se financió la otra parte. Yo le pregunté en particular que por qué no usó la ayuda del hospital. Ella decía, en el momento que ella hizo el programa, el hospital quería también obviamente que se comprometiera a trabajar con el hospital por un tiempo, y ella tenía un compromiso con la práctica, por lo tanto ella no usó la ayuda del hospital, sino que usó la ayuda que le dio la práctica de doctores con la que ella trabajó. ¿Okay? Esa es la respuesta sobre cuánto más o menos vale. La otra parte es el programa dura aproximadamente unos 2 años, ¿ok? Es 2 años, y ella lo pudo hacer como tiempo parcial. Ella estaba trabajando en el hospital, estaba recibiendo la asistencia económica del grupo con el que ella iba a trabajar, con el grupo de doctores que ella iba a trabajar, y ella trabajó y estudió durante esos 2 años para convertirse en enfermera obstétrica o enfermera partera. Okay.
Okay. Cathy, can you describe your typical day? How many hours do you work? I know you do a lot of on-call, but typically for them, what if they were to work as a midwife in the US, what would they see as far as on-call? I know you work a ton though.
Yeah, you can't go by my schedule.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm like, you'll scare them.
Yeah, what's full time for you?
My full time, I'm on call 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Oh, wow.
And then I'm in the office 3.5 days a week.
Okay.
So that's not typical.
Okay, that's not typical. But if we take we set aside a little bit of your on-call time, the expectation is that you work 3.5 days of the week plus call time.
Some midwives that just do 3 12-hour shifts a week, and that's all they're responsible for. Those are a lot of hospital-based midwives that are considered hospitalists. So they are on the unit and they do all the triage stuff. So that's a typical midwife. Then there's private practice like myself.
Mhm,
And it just depends on how many people you have to share call
mhm.
as to how often you would be on call, which
So-
is
So let me clarify so I can translate this correctly. So
Mhm.
the ones who are not practice-based like you are, who are hospitalists and work as hospitalists, they have a commitment of the 3 12-hour shifts
correct.
normally, and that's basically all they work. In your case, obviously, because you are practice-based, you have the 3.5 days commitment plus all the on-call time. I'm assuming they also have on-call time too. They
Where
don't have on-call
no,
time.
no.
Okay, they just
The
have different shifts.
hospital-based nurses or midwives do not.
Do not. Allow me to translate that. So, Cathy nos cuenta que en el caso de ella, que no es muy típico porque ella trabaja directamente para un grupo de doctores, ella en principio tiene ella trabaja 3.5 días y obviamente ella está recibiendo llamadas de cualquier necesidad que se requieren. Básicamente, ella dice que el caso de ella es bastante atípico, ella básicamente está disponible todo el tiempo. En el caso de las que trabajan como midwife, trabajando directamente para los hospitales que se llaman enfermeras obstétricas o enfermeras parteras hospitalistas que trabajan directamente para el hospital, solamente tienen como horario, simplemente trabajar lo mismo que un enfermero, los 3 turnos de 12 horas a la semana para trabajar tiempo completo. Y Cathy me dice que ellos en general no toman tiempo para llamadas de emergencia. Okay, very good. Do labor and delivery, do you need to do a master or just a bachelor's? To work in labor and delivery, do you need a master's? Of course, the answer is just a bachelor's is enough to work in labor and delivery. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. La respuesta, Karen, es obviamente no se necesita tener una maestría para trabajar en el área de labor and delivery, que es el área de dar a luz o el área de obstétrica, que obviamente tener solamente su licenciatura o tu pregrado es suficiente para trabajar. La pregunta de Maricruz sobre cuánto es tiempo completo, ya la contesté. Buenas noches, quiero saber si es tan fácil encontrar vacantes en... Oh, it is a good question. So, one of the persons wants to know how hard it is to become or find an opening to become a midwife. Is this a hard thing to compete? Is this a hard job to get, or are there a lot of availabilities?
As far as the openings go, I mean, really, it's really
Cathy, you cut out on
cutting out.
Yeah.
As far as getting into the programs, there's a few programs. There's not as much competition per se to get into the programs, but I mean, it's still competitive. Maybe not like a nurse, anesthetist or something like that, but it is still pretty competitive.
What about placement? Do most hospitals use midwives, or
midwives are coming like midwives? I just decided to change my job actually to move, and I couldn't believe how many openings there were.
Okay. So, la pregunta que nos hacían tiene 2 partes. Uno, ella dice que conseguir un programa de estudios para volverse enfermera midwife, usamos esa terminología, enfermera partera, no es tan competitivo. Obviamente es competitivo, pero no es tan competitivo. No es tan competitivo como, por ejemplo, tratar de volverse una enfermera anestesióloga, que es un programa súper competitivo. Pero obviamente hay que prepararse para eso. con respecto a conseguir trabajo en el área de volverse enfermera partera. Dice que hay muchísimas oportunidades, mucho más de lo que ella creía, que ella está a punto inclusive de cambiar su ritmo de trabajo y ha encontrado muchísimas ofertas laborales. So you stated that you are about to kind of make a change and you're finding a lot of opportunities. Do you want to elaborate a little bit about that, Cathy? We promise not to share the recording with your partners right now.
I put my husband, I think. No, it's okay. They know. Shannon's gonna cry, but I'm going to be moving to Florida, actually, to Sarasota.
Mm-hmm.
I had job offers in California, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, a couple places in Florida. And
Now, are you looking at more private practice now or in a hospital
it's going to be a
setting?
private practice, but the difference is that there's 3 groups that are together. So from going from 24/7 call to 1 day every 6 days and every 6th weekend on call.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's a big difference. And the reason midwives are in such a demand is because the communities are really wanting it. Like women especially want midwives because of the care we provide. I mean, we're just different. We're nurses first, and the way we provide care is just, it's like a physician is great, but we just take the time with the patients and answer questions and give them the time that they need and explanation, because education is important.
Yo le pedí a Cathy que elaborara un poquito la respuesta. Ella nos dice, por ejemplo, que ella recientemente recibió ofertas para moverse. Ella se está moviendo, va a ir a trabajar en Sarasota. Recibió ofertas para trabajar en Carolina del Norte, Carolina del Sur, en Georgia, en California, que hay obviamente muchas ofertas en este momento laborales y que obviamente ella decidió coger esta Sarasota porque a ella personalmente le servía el formato que le estaban ofreciendo, pero ella lo que dice es que hay muchas oportunidades para trabajar. Dice que parte de eso tiene que ver con el hecho de que muchas mujeres están deseando ser atendidas es por una enfermera partera y no por un doctor, por el tipo de... El tipo de... Por favor, apaguen los micrófonos. Dependiendo del tipo de formato de servicios que ellos prestan, donde muchas mujeres están prefiriendo que sean atendidas por una enfermera partera que ser atendidos por un doctor. Okay. Very good. So
I have one more two more things, because I know we're kind of getting close to the end of our call, but I want to also go through some questions. But can you tell everybody like what the best part of your job is? And, you know, if you had to do it all over again, would you? And just any like closing remarks you'd have for the group.
Okay.
David, do you want to translate?
Yeah. I was reading another question, so I lost a tiny bit of the last portion of your question. So I apologize. I was reading someone else's question. I apologize, Shannon.
No, just I want her to talk about like the best part of her job, and you know, if she had to go back to school and do it all over again, would she? And just any closing remarks that she'd have, like, you know, things she'd want to have them take away from today.
Okay. So Shannon le pregunta si tú tuvieras la oportunidad de hacer esto de nuevo, desde cero, ¿sería la oportunidad que estarías buscando? ¿Y hay alguna cuestión en particular que quieras dejarnos como una lección o una experiencia para compartir con las personas aquí en el grupo de la charla de esta noche?
The best part about my job is really being able to actually really become and get to know and become friends with my patients and be part of something that every single woman and dad always remembers. What do you is the one thing you remember? You always remember your delivery and the nurses there or your provider there. And so that is like probably one of the best parts of my jobs, that to know that I got to be a part of it. And that's one thing I will always tell you is the one thing I carried to my job is that I always try to remember is that patient is a family member of somebody else. So my what I do is I think of them as if they were my own family member, and that's how I would want my family member to be treated. And so 2 things that I always tell people when I'm training them is listen and explain. And if you can do those simple things for patients, they're going to love you, because sometimes people just need to be listened to. So, but my best part, my favorite part about my job is just all of the lives I've been able to bring into this world, and families that I've gotten to know and become friends with.
Well, you are the best of the best, I can tell you that.
Cathy nos dice que la experiencia más importante que ella quiere recordarnos es que de los eventos en la vida de una familia que ocurren, el momento de dar a luz es uno de esos momentos que son bastante memorables, y por lo tanto el nivel de experiencia o el nivel de situación que ocurre cuando una persona está por ahí se vuelve un evento fundamental, y las enfermeras obstétricas y las enfermeras parteras juegan un rol súper importante en ese momento en la vida. Con respecto a como profesión, obviamente ella le gusta eso bastante, y ella comparte obviamente las magníficas experiencias que trae a nivel personal y a nivel familiar de estar en una profesión de esto. ¿Ok? Así que por ese lado está muy bien.
One of the things I wish I would have done differently, and no, I would never have changed going back to school. I'm really glad I did. I wish I would have done it sooner.
Okay. Y Cathy nos dice que, porque Shannon le preguntaba si fueras a hacerlo de nuevo, ¿esto sería algo que harías de nuevo? Y ella dice que no, absolutamente, esto es algo que ella siempre haría de nuevo, es una cosa que a ella le gustó mucho, y ella en ningún momento tiene una duda que esto es parte de su vocación, de algo que ella quería hacer. There are some really nice comments here for you. I wanted to know that a lot of people said that they love hearing you, and obviously a lot of people love the area where you're actually working. Many of them are working already on obstetrics and critical care. There is a little question, I'm not sure it's relevant, but I'm going to ask it to you. Do they want to know, obviously, if there is a link between you and the NICUs? I'm not sure necessarily that this is something that you need to answer, but is there something that links you to the neonate side of the equation? Is there something you want to say about that?
We don't deal much with the neonates at all. I mean, I do circumcisions. That's about the extent of my care with the newborns. Because I was a labor and delivery nurse and neonatal resuscitated trained, and I was a instructor in it, if there's a complication with my baby, I can help step in.
Okay. So, ella dice obviamente que las personas que trabajan en la parte de ella en particular, no, en realidad ellos no trabajan mucho con el área de neonatología. Ella hace circuncisiones, pero no, en realidad ellos no tienen mucho enlace con la parte de neonatología. Like everything else, I don't know why people think that they can become a nurse without being fully, bilingual, but obviously a question is where you can become a nurse, a midwife nurse, without ever speaking a word of English. I think I can answer that for you, but I thought that would be a funny question just to talk along. Liana, nosotros siempre decimos a todo el mundo, no hay forma de ser un enfermero profesional en los Estados Unidos sin ser bilingüe. Hay que hablar inglés. El inglés es parte fundamental de ser enfermero profesional en los Estados Unidos. ¿Hemos sido licenciados para aplicar o puede ser aquello? Oh, here is actually an interesting question. Could an ADN become a midwife, or do they have to have a bachelor's?
You have to have a bachelor's first in order to get to your master's.
There
are some where you can go right from that to a master's.
And do like the two parts.
There are not.
Okay. Cristo, el requerimiento para volverse enfermero midwife o enfermero practicante es que tienes que tener tu pregrado universitario para hacer tu maestría. Y dice que hay algunos programas que te permiten, para las personas que no han sacado su licenciatura, que no tienen su pregrado, que les ayudan a hacer obviamente el tiempo que les hace falta del pregrado y hacer inmediatamente la maestría en volverse enfermeros, enfermeros obstétricos. Así que sí hay algunos programas, pero obviamente la mayoría tienen como requerimiento ya tener un pregrado, una licenciatura en enfermería. Okay. I'm reading a few extra questions. Okay, I think that's about all the questions there are right now, Cathy.
All right.
Any last words any last words of wisdom you want to?
Well, I will tell you, you can do anything you put your mind to.
La última pregunta que yo le hice a Cathy es algunas últimas palabras así maravillosas que nos puede decir. Ella simplemente le dice, le recuerda a todo el mundo, todas las cosas que usted se proponga hacer, las logra. Y eso yo quiero extender eso a muchas otras cosas. Cualquier cosa en que tú te propongas hacer, lo vas a lograr y no hay ningún problema. Ok. Cathy, on behalf of us, of all the NASH group, I don't want to thank you so kind of you to give us some of your time. It's so wonderful to bring a person who is hands-on doing some of these areas to talk a little bit about their professions. So I really cannot tell you how much we appreciate having you here tonight. I think the nurses here, the 70+ nurses who were at the time, are so pleased
Thank you.
to have an opportunity to talk to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Cathy.
Le estoy agradeciendo a Cathy en nombre de nosotros del Grupo NASH de haber sacado un tiempo de su tiempo tan ocupado y compartir esta noche con nosotros y obviamente invitarla a que en un futuro nos vuelva otra vez a charlar. Shannon or Sean, do you have handy the meetings for the next couple of weeks?
I do not. Shannon, do you have that?
I do know next week is, which is May 25th, is with Robert from BSR E.E.U.U, and they're going to talk about how to improve your listening skills in English.
Mm-hmm.
And I
And
believe
then
the next one might be right.
June 1st.
Assimilation into the U.S.
Yep. Achieving My Dream USA Bound, and it's Diana Marcius.
Okay. Le estoy preguntando a Shannon que nos informe un poquito cuáles son las charlas para las próximas semanas. La próxima semana vamos a charlar sobre cómo ayudar en la parte, cómo mejorar un poco el proceso de inglés para obviamente venir aquí ayudar a venir a los Estados Unidos. Y en 2 semanas tenemos a una persona que está en el programa, que está a punto de llegar a los Estados Unidos, que va a contarnos un poquito su experiencia de cómo es haber pasado por el programa y que ya está a punto de venir, como todas las cosas buenas y las tribulaciones que ella pasó para poder completar su proceso y estar ya de camino a venir aquí a los Estados Unidos. ¿Ok? A nombre de todos nosotros en el Grupo NASH y a todos los que asistieron esta noche, quiero agradecerles mucho el habernos acompañado y espero que ojalá no se les olvide guardar la información y que nos acompañen todos los miércoles a las charlas, que para eso las tenemos organizadas, para que puedan oírnos tanto en inglés y aprender un poco más sobre la enfermería en los Estados Unidos. ¿Ok? Quiero agradecerles todo. De todas maneras, a todos muy buenas noches. Again, Cathy, on behalf of the rest of our group, really thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Have a great one.
Okay, you too.
Thank you.
All right.
Buenas noches a todos y gracias por asistir esta noche.
Gracias, David, que estés bien.
Gracias.